Mic check, mic check. What's going on? Welcome into episode 54 of the KZ Community Beats. It's I, your host, Ross Martinez, and in the hot seat this week, it is kind of hot in this room, right, ladies?
It is.
And, woo! Wow. We have Gayle Young, the executive director of Susan G. Komen Central Illinois Memorial, and also Dr. Fran Armmer from Circle of Promise, also retired chairperson of Department of Nursing at Bradley University. Today, we're going to get in depth, talk about everything you two have been doing for the community for years, and so many more. So, ladies, welcome in. Do we need to jump in the pool first? It is kind of hot in here. We're doing the transition of summer, spring, and fall. I don't know. So, ladies, how long have both of you been a part of Gayle, Susan G. Komen, and Dr. Fran? How long have you been a part of Circle of Promise?
Well, I've been with Susan G. Komen for over 20 years. I started as a volunteer, and then I became the grants chair and was on the Komen board, and then in 2020 I became the executive director. So over 20 years. 20
years of helping out the community. Yep. And Dr. Fran, how about you?
For me, it's been an interesting experience because while I was at Bradley University, I had an opportunity to take a sabbatical to study breast cancer in African American women especially, and it was my pleasure to have met Gayle and then to be introduced to the Circle of Promise. And it was through the Circle of Promise, I'm thinking maybe 10 or 12 years ago, that I was able to not only complete some of the research that I had been conducting, but it began for me what has been a lifelong commitment in terms of understanding and pursuing and exploring the challenges of addressing and dispelling so many of the myths associated with breast cancer in all women, and especially in African American women.
So we will get into Susan G. Komen in a little bit, but this is the first time I'm hearing of Circle of Promise. Can you tell me more in depth about the actual organization, the intentions behind the creation of it, as you kind of touched a little bit right now, but a little bit more in depth?
Yeah. Well, Susan G. Komen and Links Incorporated, which is an African American women's professional organization, came together almost 20 plus years ago to address the disparity in outcomes for Black women. Some data came out that basically showed that Black women are 40% more likely to die of breast cancer
40%.
than white women. 40%.
Absolutely.
And that was an eye-opening statistic. Yeah. It was an unacceptable statistic. And so these two organizations came together and said, what do we do? What do we do to get information into the community so that we can begin to address some of the issues that lead to that disparity in outcome? And so Circle of Promise was founded, and the idea behind Circle of Promise is that we all have our spheres and circles of influence, whether it is at Bradley University, whether it is where we work, whether it is where we go to church, whether it is just within our family, our neighborhood, the organizations we belong to. And so the Circle of Promise has made it their mission, and it is a mission, to make sure that education about breast cancer gets through the community, gets to their circles, and really kind of use those circles as the starting point for sharing the information. Once, we grew beyond our immediate circles, then we started doing a lot of community-wide events. We'll go to education events, we'll go to health fairs, lunch and learns, and share information so that people can become more educated on breast cancer, what to look for, what the issues are with people seeking treatment, and hopefully will impact the outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and I think that one of the points that Gayle has shared that is very, very interesting is that African American women do not get breast cancer more often than Caucasian women, but we tend to die of it at a greater rate. Now that's important because what we know is then if we can initiate opportunities in terms of education, in terms of information, in terms of dispelling some of the challenges associated with assessments, then we can more earlier detect, we can more earlier implement strategies that can cut down that number. And so we really have our jobs in front of us because of so many of the rumors, so much of the challenge. But we do have to emphasize that we have to be on the front end of early detection in order to make a difference in terms of outcomes.
Now, like for me, I'm Mexican born and raised. I come from that lineage, that culture. I know within my culture, a lot of people, even within my close-knit family, they're like, I'm not going to the doctor.
Right.
I'd rather go to the herbalist or
Right.
XYZ. Is that also something that you see within the Black community?
So many times, and what has been a blessing for us is that when we have done screening and encouraged individuals to do screening, you would be amazed at the number of individuals for which it is their first screening, regardless of age. It's the first time, and we're just grateful that they took the time to say, well, I'm here. They're nervous, and that's understandable. They've heard so many myths about pain and about some other things. And so we're just glad that through Circle of Promise, through Susan G. Komen, we're breaking through some of those challenges. It's important that individuals have the screening. We can't say that enough. And with what is available in our community, the opportunities to have the screening have been mitigated by ways to cut down cost, because of what individuals have said and heard. And we know, frankly, healthcare
It's expensive.
Hasn't been, if you've got to make different choices about your life, you end up making choices about what you can concretely see. I've got to eat, I've got to feed my children, I've got to pay my bills, so, but we're making, I believe, some inroads that can make a difference. We just cannot overemphasize the importance of screening.
Now, Doc, let me ask you this. So you said you were doing research, doing all this. This is like your life's work, right?
This is part of my life.
Partially your life's work. How much has that changed, or have your eyes widened since getting involved with programs like, Susan G. Komen and Circle of Trust?
Circle of Promise.
Circle of Promise. Sorry.
That's okay.
And it is. And that's part of the key to it.
It is a trust issue. It absolutely is. I think that what has been eye-opening for me, and as much as we want to consider ourselves in 2023, 2024, an informed community, an informed population, are the number of myths, the number of things that individuals continue to believe will happen to them if they have a mammogram. And let me just share a couple of them because it just seems strange. Well, it's not strange. It's what's been passed on. That by having the mammogram, if you have or have been diagnosed with cancer, that it's going to spread it because of the pressure of of having the mammogram.
Oh, I never heard that.
And some individuals have talked about, well, no, it hurts so much till if I've got it, I'll just have it. One of the challenges, I'm having another idea that has come to mind. One of the challenges that we also have to recognize is that sometimes when an individual comes for screening, and that's considered a screening mammogram, we may ask them to come back because maybe we want to do a follow-up test just to help and strengthen the diagnosis. And some individuals will come the first time, but they won't come the second time. Because it's like, well, I went there one time and, if
they
it's
found
bad,
something.
if they have. Now they may not have, but we just need to confirm. We need that follow-up test. And we're finding that some individuals will come for the first one, but then they may not follow up on the second or so. And so we also work on strengthening that family unit, that friends unit that can be the advocacy that encourages. You would be amazed how many individuals who in our community have indeed experienced breast cancer and can indeed be a support once they understand their role. We don't, so Susan G. Komen and the Circle of Promise, it's been a blessing to individuals in countless ways in terms of just saying, let us speak to you about not being alone.
It's creating that community bond.
Absolutely.
And there is a real, once they engage, there is a real sisterhood and that bond among breast cancer patients. And I think that has really been very helpful in getting people to actually go through through treatment to get on the other side of it is because they have that support, and they can get questions answered. Circle of Promise does one-on-one mentoring with breast cancer patients.
So you
Komen
like,
Cafe.
hold a hand in a way of like, hey, we're here with you the entire time.
Absolutely. And if people reach out, we work with the breast cancer navigators in our community and say, hey, if you've got a patient, you have a Black woman who is needing someone to come alongside. One of the things that we've talked about over the years is a lot of Black, not only women, but a lot of Black men and women, when they go into a medical facility, one of the things they notice is, no one looks like me.
Yeah, I've picked general primary care physicians kind of off that, like, oh, you're Latino, you understand the nuances of things I go through.
Yeah, and so that makes people less likely to want to go, makes them less comfortable. If things don't go well that first time, we're not interested in going back. So I think having that person there from Circle of Promise to come alongside, just to talk with, really, as much as anything, is a huge part of the success of helping people through the journey of breast cancer.
In the years that you have been pouring your heart into these organizations, what's been the most fulfilling aspect of it for you, just as an individual?
I think there are so many times and points when the individual is relaxed enough to become their own advocate. They have seen you model or seen you ask questions. I've had situations where, although I was not with them at the time, we had talked through, now you need to have this written down. You need to ask these questions, and we talk through. And then the person says, well, if I'm going to ask that question, do I need to ask this? That means they're taking charge of their care. They're now thinking about, and if it's important to the client, then it's important enough to ask. And then the other thing that I like to emphasize is, you stay there and talk with them until you understand. The issue is never going to be what they said. The issue is, what did you understand? And how do you feel capable of moving through and handling it? And then, of course, because of the Circle of Promise, we become that avenue where individuals can literally say, I'm pretty scared about this. I'm really not, I didn't want my family to know just how scared I am about this. But with you, I can talk about it.
An honest discussion.
And what I've found also, too, is most individuals, that's the key. Let's be honest about this. Let's talk about how and what I can do, how I can participate. For many of us in the circle, not everyone, and that's a blessing also, not everyone in the circle is a breast cancer survivor, but all of us have the empathy. And then for some of us who are survivors, we add to it that lived experience that allows us to have that, it's a special kind of sense of humor once you have gone through some experiences that you can then talk to a person about. And so I think that recognizing that I can be myself, whomever that person is today.
Just creating that safety for somebody.
Absolutely.
It's essential.
Non-judgmental and encouraging.
Because you've probably seen in your years the subtle realization of, I might have a problem. Oh, wait, I'm diagnosed with breast cancer. Now what's my life look like? And finding structure to provide women that big obstacle has got to be a lot for both of you.
Well, one of the things, that kind of goes along with what you're saying and with what Fran is, we have the Circle of Promise board itself, a large number are breast cancer survivors. And the fact that we do events and we're there, some of them are 2 and 3 time breast cancer survivors. So the fact that they're there, I can come out on the other side of this. I can beat this, because I know one of the things when we very first started Circle of Promise that was shared was that, number one, in a lot of Black families, we don't want to talk about our health issues. And number two, the word cancer meant basically death. And so here's this group of women that are out there sharing, living life, and out there so that people see, okay, you know what, it doesn't have to mean that I'm not going to make it. And that's one of the great things about, we do every year an education breakfast. And 500 people come to this event. In fact, I was just going through my table list today, and we're might have a seat or two left, but we are almost filled.
Really?
And it's an opportunity for people to come together. Number one, and I think it's one of the most important things, is of course to educate.
Yes.
We have a medical panel. We have a different topic every year that's related to breast cancer. But the other thing is we celebrate survivors. And that celebration of the survivors in the room is also hope for anybody else that's there, whether they are a caregiver for somebody else or whether they will be diagnosed. The fact that we have a room full of that 500, probably 20 to 25% are breast cancer survivors. And it's just a great thing to be able to celebrate them and for people to go away and think, okay, you know what, this if for whatever reason I would be diagnosed, it doesn't mean that I can't make it. I can't make it through this. And it's a great morning. It's amazing to me that 500 people want to come out on a Saturday morning at 8 o'clock for an education event, which shows you how important it is.
And to be vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and to get up and share your question.
Yeah.
You know, and we actually have a medical panel. Dr. Fran facilitates that for us, and people write down, you know, hey, I need information about this. You know, tell me about this. And so you see what people are worried about. You see what their concerns and fears are. And I think Dr. Fran's hit early on a lot of the myths about breast cancer. You know,
what are some myths besides that it could spread just by getting a pap smear?
by getting a mammogram.
Or a mammogram.
Things like deodorant can cause breast cancer. Or
that's a myth that's out there?
Yes.
I had no idea. Well, I'm a man, my bad. I'm completely out of my element on this. I'm learning on the fly also.
Or you know what? There's a lot of things that for example, one of the most serious things are that people think, well, no one in my family has breast cancer, so I'm not going to get it. You know, nobody has it.
So people believe it's just hereditary.
Right, exactly.
But it's not.
And no, 80% of all breast cancer patients have no known family history. So if I'm saying, I don't need to worry about that, my grandma didn't have it, my mom didn't have it, and that's a huge myth that is out there that people kind of use so they don't have to worry about getting that mammogram. And it's one of those that, you know, that really has an impact. If I take that attitude, then I don't go get those screenings that are really are life-saving if you're diagnosed in its early stage. You know, we know every stage beyond the earliest stages that you're diagnosed, your chances of survival decline.
Now, for somebody like myself who is completely not in the know of all this is knowledge for myself. What are some early detection signs that, you know, people should be looking out for just in case, besides, you know, scheduling an exam?
Kind of interestingly, one of the things that I do whenever I do an education event, is there are actually, anytime people say, well, I found a lump or a bump, that's the one thing that everybody knows. But there are 8 warning signs of breast cancer. And in those 8 warning signs, you know, there are things that people wouldn't even necessarily think about. For example, a rash or redness on the surface of your breast. It can be a type of breast cancer that's called inflammatory breast cancer, which is a very aggressive breast cancer. Dimpling or puckering of the skin. Well, that could mean that there's a growth of some kind under there and it's pulling the skin in. Same thing, an inverting of the nipple of your breast. You know, so there's a number of
I'm
signs.
I'm on Komen.org right now, and I'm looking at the early detection signs.
There you go, and it'll give you that whole list of different things that you, you know, that a discharge from the nipple, any of those kinds of things. And I used to take when we did a lot of events, I had a little survey sheet, and it said, Now, which of these things would cause you, if you had this, would cause you to go contact your doctor? And everybody marked a lump or a bump.
Like, that's the first thing.
That's the first thing everybody thinks of.
Like, not to put my mom's business out there, but not too long ago, she said she felt it.
Yeah.
She went and got checked. It was a fatty tissue, something.
And it could be.
She was fine.
Absolutely.
But I remember that moment where she's telling me and my siblings, like, hey, like, I think you could see the worry in her face.
Yeah,
and you could see, like, she's trying not to panic, and she's looking at us, making sure we don't
Well,
panic.
and as you look at that list, one of the things is like a thickening.
Yes.
And so that, you know, she may have been like, oh gosh, that, you know, that, and that's one of the things that's important is making sure that you know kind of what would be normal for you, so that when something comes along, one of these other things, you're like, oh boy, you know, that isn't normal for me. I need to get that checked out. And
Are there also any factors that are linked to increased risk of breast cancer?
absolutely. You wanna, there are some genetic predispositions for breast cancer. People that have the BRCA gene, it's kind of the thing that when we talk about genetics and breast cancer, it's kind of the one thing that a lot of people have heard of is the BRCA gene. A few years ago, Angelina Jolie had her prophylactic mastectomy because her mother died of breast cancer, and she and her family are carry the BRCA mutation. It's a mutation on the gene, and if you have that mutation, you are 70% more likely to develop breast cancer and ovarian cancer. Both, especially ovarian, very, very deadly. So
Are there tests to see
there
about?
are, and genetic testing. So
Genetic
when
testing.
we started it, we were looking for, in fact, a Komen researcher, Dr. Mary Claire King, was the person that discovered the BRCA mutation. She was working with two doctors from Vanderbilt University, Drs. Holt and Jensen, and they discovered the first gene mutation. And it was kind of, as an old history teacher, I would say it's kind of was like the Rosetta Stone of breast cancer genetics. It kind of opened our
Like the
eyes
gateway into
to
everything.
what it, and now when you go and get genetic testing, the panel can be 40, 50, 60 different potential mutations that they're looking at.
So the science has evolved to a
my
point where,
goodness,
like,
it's amazing.
we are
It's
on this.
amazing. We are.
Yes.
Are there also any factors linked to decreased risk in breast cancer and stuff like that?
Increased risk.
Decreased risk.
Maintaining healthy body weight.
Overall healthy.
Overall health. You know, exercise.
Yes.
Don't overdrink. I mean, alcohol. You know, alcohol
In
causes
moderation.
inflammation and those kinds of things. So really, it's pretty much the things you would say for every
stay
health
healthy.
issue.
Go for a walk, eat less, eat clean.
Exactly. You
And
know,
just go to
whether
your
that's
doctor.
related to high blood pressure, diabetes, breast cancer, you name it. There are key things that we know you're just going to be healthier. So,
And I think, too, it's important for individuals to recognize that should you develop breast cancer, it may not have anything to do with something you did.
right.
It's just
And
life.
so, exactly. And so sometimes in the conversations, it's like, what did I do? Why did I do it?
yes.
Why me? And the emotional response to such a diagnosis,
Yep.
it's understandable to go through those questions. However, we would encourage, and we spend time saying, that's not the place to linger. Don't anchor there.
Right.
Because there are times when we cannot answer.
No.
I've known, and even in my own family, I've had situations where individuals were tested very religiously,
Yep.
annually,
Yep.
and then only to find that they had developed a rapidly growing breast cancer 6 months after they'd had their mammogram that was clean. It can happen.
Yep.
And so
It's life.
what we want to emphasize is that prevention in terms of healthy living, and then seeking out organizations like Susan G. Komen, the Circle of Promise, to be able to recognize that information, education,
Right.
of course, preventative work, but should you be diagnosed, there's an organization and there are individuals who will walk alongside and will walk with you and will be your support, be part of your support.
That's community. I love that. I mean, that's something that a lot of people need during your darkest, deepest times.
Oh.
You need somebody that can understand the nuances of what you're going through, the fear. It's rational fear. It's not rational. Some people like, oh, it's rational.
It is very
It's
rational.
life-changing.
It is very rational.
Now, let me ask you, because we keep we keep focusing on education. And you said that at these events, there's frequently asked questions. What are some other questions people come in that are just general knowledge? You're like, here, let me help you out first before we go down this rabbit hole.
Well, there's some interesting questions on there. Do you have one of?
Well, what came to my mind when he was raising it, there was an individual, and we have a panel that is diverse enough, because what happens so many times is once you've been diagnosed or your loved one is diagnosed, it's hard to hear and be aware of the resources in the community. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we are very purposive in what we do is to make sure that there are representatives on the panel who can say, these are the resources in our community. We don't expect that individuals, if you are not engaged in healthcare activities, will know that these are available. So some individuals will ask us, and part of the question is, I'm lost. I don't know where to turn. I think somebody talked to me, but I don't even know what they said. And we know that in the midst of anxiety and responding. So on that panel, there will be community, county organizations that can offer support.
And we actually try it at the event. There's a what I call a medical fair, where we have lots of different medical partners that are there to share information with you.
Oh, that's great.
You know, all of our breast cancer navigators are there. Our Illinois Cancer Care is there. We got Heartland Health Clinic and Solvera Health, which are primary care. You know, you need that health home. That's the other thing we find, is that there are so many people that don't have a medical home. You know, they're not going and getting their screenings and things because they don't have that connection with that medical home.
I'll be honest, it was until maybe like 3 months ago I got a primary care physician here.
Yeah.
I understand. Life moves for a lot of people.
And, you know, and honestly, if you're already a little leery of the medical community, it's not the first thing you're going to run out and do. And so, you know, instead of having that place where somebody's saying, okay, you know, Dr. Fran, it's time to get your mammogram, you know, we want to get you scheduled or whatever, you don't have that. So we've got primary care partners there. We've got people that do like bras and prosthesis, CPO. Is going to be there because you know not everybody has reconstruction.
That's right.
So where do I get into?
It's a full 360 type of event.
Yeah,
everything.
Try and do a little bit of everything, and then we actually throw in some fun shopping kinds of things, so that you know everybody's like, oh well, shoot, I need that candle or that piece of jewelry, but just to keep things a little bit lighter. But lots of healthcare partners there.
Now I have 2 questions. One may be a little uninformed because I don't know this, and the other one is something serious I want to go down. So first one, what is the difference? I've heard 2 terms, a pap smear and a mammogram. What's the difference between that?
Well, your mammogram is your chest.
Okay.
And your pap smear is down below.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah.
That's
Anatomically, quite a big difference.
Kind of something in between there.
Yes,
but
yes.
that's my I'm uninformed and I should do more Googling type of question.
But you know what? Honestly, that's a question that other people probably have.
Like,
because those are the 2 tests that everybody's saying, especially for women.
Oh,
you know, did you get your mammogram? Did you get your pap smear?
That's true.
I just thought they were like one and the same.
No, both. Well, because the other thing is, we have a program called the Illinois Breast and Cervical Cancer Program. Well, the breast is mammogram. The cervical you get when you get
Thank you.
your pap.
Reproductive.
Yeah.
The sign language behind. I'm like, I'm following you, Doc.
Dr. Frank's over here doing some good sign language for us.
Now, my more serious question with this is we're building community, we're building trust, we're building support. Let's say I'm married to a woman who is just diagnosed with this. How do I, as a spouse, how do I help them out? What are the things I need to know to help the person I love? Or maybe it's my mother that's diagnosed, or my sister, somebody I love that's in my life. How do I handle this?
Well, you become what they call a co-survivor.
That's right.
You are
A co-survivor.
Yeah. And really, wouldn't you say a family becomes
Absolutely.
co-survivors when somebody is
Absolutely.
diagnosed?
Absolutely. And I think what is great about the Circle of Promise is we will work with, we're working with the central individual who is the person who has the diagnosis, but no one lives in isolation when they have a supportive family or they have friends. We will work with and talk with and encourage everyone involved, because this is what we know. Many times there are individuals who mean well. They just don't understand. They don't intend to be impatient. They don't even intend to say things, not understanding that sometimes the quietness of your presence is really all that
Just being
individual
there.
needs. Just being there and just knowing that whomever you are this morning when you woke up is acceptable and loved by me.
Because, like, say if you're a people pleaser or a giver, right? You're a healer naturally as a person, right? You have somebody like me. I have a girl I'm dating. She has a problem. I want to fix it.
Right.
But in
Yes.
this instance, I can't.
No, and that's a really insightful comment, because a lot of men really struggle with that, because men are fixers. This is the problem. What do we do to fix it?
Like,
And it
who do I need to call?
doesn't- and
Where
it
do I got to
doesn't-
go?
Exactly, and it doesn't always work that way.
Have you seen some general commonalities between most spouses of, like, okay, this is how you should react, and this is how this may have not been good for you?
I think that's a very personal,
Broad?
depending
It's a
on
very
personality.
individualized.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, I will say we have a few books in our office that are like, "What's happening to the woman I love?" You know, books, some things on what questions do I ask when we go to the doctor. Every breast cancer patient in the Peoria area, when they are diagnosed, receives a breast cancer handbook, and it is a phenomenal handbook that kind of just takes you through a lot of the, and really sharing that with your partner is a key to helping them understand some of the things you're going through. I think it also helps them understand that it isn't something that they can, as much as they love you and they want to, it isn't something they can fix right away. It's a process, you know, and just being there. And I love Dr. Fran's comment about just being there, being present, not talking, not hovering, you know, just being there, because it is a journey, and it takes time. I mean, the whole process, we'll have people say, well, it took so long for me to get in and get the diagnostics all done and whatever. It's a process.
Just be that rock for
yeah,
your person.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we understand, too, which is why I think the Circle of Promises is so great. We understand the impatience that individuals go through, because for some of us who were diagnosed and knew, okay, I'm diagnosed, when is my next appointment? Oh my gosh, I can't get in to see the surgeon
Yeah.
for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Look, I'm thinking you ought to do it in the next 48 hours.
Yeah.
And the reality is, it is a process. It does take time. The handbook is well written, I think.
It is.
And the point also is that it's written at a way that can be understood. Sometimes what is written is in so much jargon,
Right.
till you lose it after you read or look at the first 2 pages. It's like, okay, good for somebody else, not for me. But it can hold on to it. You can reference
absolutely.
it, and it can be a blessing in terms of moving through, because it can also prompt some things. And then, you know, I had a dear friend who would call me for whatever reason. She communicated between midnight and 2 a.m. And
Well, that's when anxiety runs wild.
you know,
That's right.
Trust
That's
me.
well,
exactly
but
right.
it
I
really
know.
does. Things get quiet, and then it really starts to happen. Well, and she would literally say, "Now, Doc, do you have your book?" And it's like,
Turn to page 54, verse
yes,
5.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And it was kind of like, now that's not what happened to me. Well, that's okay, because you know what? Every person is unique. The good thing was she was indeed using the resources. And so that was great. So the resources are available. I was also thinking about a question that you had asked. What are some of the questions that can come up?
Oh, yeah.
And what we had at one of the Circle of Promise breakfasts, the person, I can't remember if she gave us her age or not. She said, "When can I stop having my mammogram?"
Yeah.
You know, and one of the physicians was
Never.
very clear. You know, never. What is wild in our community? I was just reading some data. In 2023, in the county reports, around, I think they said around 38,000 women had mammograms for, checking for breast cancer this past year. I may giving my data maybe a tad bit off, and that sounds like a lot, but that was really only around 72% of the age group between
They're
50
eligible.
Of just the age group.
72% of that age group, 50 to 74, something like that. So while we're talking about it, and some individuals may say in their circle of friends and their communities, we're all on it, there's still work to do. There's still a need, because we haven't conquered in terms of stabilizing this situation at all.
Speaking of stabilizing the situation, do we also see individuals outside that age group that get breast cancer?
Absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
And and that's one of the things that one of the reasons it's really important for people to know their body and know what's normal for them.
Yeah, because you know what is normal day to day.
Yes. And we get there's a lot of younger women that are diagnosed, and unfortunately a lot of younger women, when they're diagnosed, the breast cancers tend to be more aggressive.
When they're younger, it's more aggressive?
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Has there been any studies to explain or kind of give an avenue of why that might be a thing? Or is that still kind of being studied and understood?
Nothing.
Not the why.
Not the why. That's
But it just seems to be a carried
Well,
notion.
And especially
Really?
younger black women.
Yes.
And
Really?
black women tend to, unfortunately, get more triple negative breast cancer,
that's it.
which is an aggressive
That is the
form of
Triple
breast
negative.
cancer.
Is there other variant of levels like double negative, single negative, or is it?
Well, triple negative just means when a physician or an oncologist looks at a breast tumor, there's 3 markers that they're looking for, which then help them know what kind of treatment to treatment plan to put together for the patient. In triple negative, you don't have any of those 3 markers.
So it's just
So you've got to try a lot of things.
throw
Yes.
everything against the barn at that
Yeah.
point. You're just
Yeah. Yep.
everything.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, I'll be honest, this is the most knowledge I've gained
Yeah.
from the topic of
Yeah.
breast
Yeah.
cancer and just I may be asking some very basic
No,
questions,
you're
but
asking wonderful questions.
It's really
Very good questions.
great
Yeah.
to be able to talk
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
It's so important.
why have both of you chosen this to be a passion in your life, to devote your skill set, your knowledge, your ability to comfort people in our community? Like, why is this your thing?
Well, I actually got involved as a volunteer because a dear friend from my church passed of breast cancer.
My
She
condolences
was
to you.
one of those, just one of those spirit-filled people who was the confirmation director, and she just loved on everyone. And when she lost her breast cancer battle, it was really impacted a lot of people. And we just decided, a number of us from our church, that we would, and make sure that we got engaged and involved and did what we could do.
And Doc?
For me, it's always been a piece of understanding, and I know that we use the word very commonly now, the whole notion of health equity, but presenting and affording the most optimal opportunities for everyone to live a healthy life. And in order to live a healthy life, for me, it is not just breast cancer, but it is definitely understanding breast cancer. It's also understanding some of the other, what we call comorbidities or problems that tend to happen in individuals' lives when the determinants, they use that phrase, social determinants of health, are impaired. If you can't live in a healthy environment, if your transportation doesn't facilitate it, if your education has been impaired, if your health has been impaired because you had to make economic choices, then your equity is clearly impaired. There is a disparity in who gets the best health care at times.
That's
So
very interesting
it's
because
it's really exciting to explore
Yeah.
breast cancer awareness for me. Also, of course, I was I was interested in the study of it, and then I'm a survivor. So I'm a breast cancer survivor, and what is interesting is no one in my family, on both sides My
Oh, so
mother's
you
side
were
over
that
here.
case.
I was that case. And then when I was diagnosed, 7 months later, one of my younger sisters was diagnosed. Now, the difference is I
Wow.
had, and on top of this, that's what's so richly intriguing about this. The cells that I was diagnosed with having, she was diagnosed, now she's my younger sister, with a much more aggressive type.
Wasn't even the same.
Wasn't even the same.
Wasn't even the same
category,
type.
Not even close. And believe me, we are definitely biological, same parents. Believe me, you'd look at us, you'd know that.
Same parents, same house, same everything,
All of
but
that.
very different
But very
cases
different
of
cases
cancer.
and diagnosed, and both of us had been very regularly. And I like to tell this story because it was one of the first stories that when I was joined Circle of Promise. I have a friend here in Peoria who was one of those individuals who never wanted to ever have a mammogram because she just no big deal, and it's like my life is full and life is busy, and I'm a healthcare provider. She's a friend of mine. I said, I'm a healthcare provider. My friend won't even get a mammogram. And we had decided that we would get our mammogram scheduled at the same time, and being the social people that we are, then we would go to lunch. And so we both went, had our mammograms done at the same time. Her results came back. She was healthy. She was negative. Bravo. My results came back and I had cancer.
How was that day for you?
In that, well, you know what? That was an interestingly challenging day, but I believe that God blessed me because I was going to skip that year because I've been having negatives all my life. But this one time, because I was thinking I was helping somebody else to encourage them to have a mammogram, I said, we'll go together. The blessing was she was clear and clean. I was diagnosed.
Ain't that the way God works?
Isn't that wild? Isn't that wonderful?
You think you're just doing a good deed, helping somebody out, and then God's like, hey, hold on.
I got a plan. I got a plan.
I got a
Yeah.
plan for you, and this is it. And mine was, of course, early detected.
Do you mind talking about how your life changed in those moments of, okay, I'm going in doing a good thing, now I'm diagnosed? How did your life change after that diagnosis?
My life didn't change as much externally as it did internally. I was absolutely frightened because I'm a single parent, and at that time I had a very young daughter, and although I have a very, very supportive family, I had no family in Peoria. So I was blessed with a church family that was wonderful, a sorority that is wonderful, and a family that literally we are the kind of family that wherever you are, everybody starts to drive in.
Yeah.
So so the support was there, and then just knowing that I needed to live. I needed to live because I was raising a daughter, and was blessed till it worked out. The healthcare in this community for me was excellent. It was excellent. I had a wonderful surgeon physician. She was strong enough, Dr. Mamalito, to tolerate my personality because I kind of felt like I should be able to control my own healthcare plan. And after all, I do know a few things. But she was indeed captain of that ship, and she made it clear everybody knew about it.
She's like, Doc, look at me. I got you covered.
I know. And when I'm trying to negotiate not taking some of the medicine that was causing a few side effects with me, she just said, take a deep breath. I'm not changing you. It was I took a deep breath and kept on going.
That's also a part of the process of it. As you have certain medications, there are side effects.
Absolutely.
And then understanding that these are only side effects, it's not the disease.
Exactly.
But these are medications. There are going to be some adverse effects to it.
That's
But you have to
exactly
trust the process for what it is.
Exactly.
Because what was it on this?
Persevere.
But the NCI reports that 90.3% of women with breast cancer survive 5 years after diagnosis. The survival rate includes all women with breast cancer, regardless of the stage. The 5-year survival rate for women diagnosed with localized breast cancer is 99%. So have we seen that number go up over the years?
When Komen started, that number was 72%.
72% to 99.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think we chatted a little bit. Susan G. Komen was a Peoria native.
Yes, you were telling me that. I had no idea.
Yeah, she was a young woman who died of metastatic breast cancer at the age of 36. Left a son and a daughter. And her family, her sister Nancy in particular, made it her life's work
Yes.
to founded Susan G. Komen in her sister's honor so that other families would not go through
Yes.
what they went through, so that we would have money invested in research, that we would, make sure that people had access to the screenings and diagnostics that they needed. And so that statistic back when Komen started was 72% survival rate.
That is a big jump.
And that's why, as Dr. Fran was talking earlier, that early detection is key. It really is. And I think, we've been talking about it for a lot of years. Early detection saves lives. Well, sometimes when you say
point in case,
things-
Doc, right here.
Yeah, absolutely.
you did a great thing as a friend, and it was an early detection sign.
That's right. Exactly.
Do you mind me asking what happened with your sister's journey?
My sister's journey was very, very rugged. She had to travel to some specialty facilities in Texas. The therapies were very, very strenuous on her body, but we celebrate because she is blessed and she's healthy and she's moving. She's doing well. Our family, we talk about the importance of community, and our family was a kind of community, and she's the kind of person who was able to tease about some of the things that was happening. That normal individuals, when you're just going through your day-to-day life, some of her therapies resulted in the loss of hair. Well, okay, we normally think about that being a challenge when you are losing hair on the top of your head, but when you're losing hair that is like the hair in your nose and on your eyebrows.
Stuff that
things like
protects you
that.
from things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your eyelashes, and she would be talking, and we would just have a blast because she'd be talking and she didn't realize that, she might have a little bit of drainage, and you just had to say, here, take a tissue and keep going. But it's
But you laugh through the pain to
you do.
get through it together.
You know what? It's understanding that, what is beautiful is that you are here and we're together. And if we've got to walk through this with giving you a box of Kleenexes or a lovely wig or several, a dress wig, a work wig, whatever, we're in this together and we're walking with you and you're not walking alone.
Would you say that would be the silver lining that you learned throughout that process of you and your sister?
Well, I don't know that it was a silver lining as much as it was a confirmed lining, because when you have a faith that we have in Jesus Christ, the reality is we live that. We live the hope. We live the experience of people loving you. We live the experience of people doing kind things. We live those experiences. She did in another state, and I definitely did here in Peoria.
It's interesting how even at your darkest, we could find a way to create community, and a strong one at that.
Absolutely.
We have Susan G. Komen, but we also have Circle of Promise, two amazing organizations. Susan G. Komen, the first time I heard of it, they were sponsored in WWE. For years.
Yeah.
That's how I found out about Susan. That's how I found. I'm like, Susan G. Komen. So I looked into it. I saw it. Yeah. They brought awareness to me just by doing a wrestling show. Yeah. Which I was like, wow.
Well, and you know what? One of the keys and goals is to reach different audiences.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
It helped me tell a friend about it.
That we probably weren't reaching with our normal.
Yeah.
I think
it was back in
Vince
college.
McMahon and John Cena, we did a lot. We were able to do a lot. They raised a lot of money for research.
Well, I was able to
John Cena
tell
was a pretty
somebody.
good,
John Cena is amazing. I met that guy.
Spokesperson
Cool.
through that whole thing.
But because of that, there was a friend of mine in college who ended up being diagnosed with breast cancer, and she didn't know about Susan G. Komen. Yeah. But I saw it on wrestling. I'm like, hey, I don't know if this can help you, but boom. Right. And just that small thing, I didn't fall. She's good now. She survived, but I don't know if that helped. Yeah. But the fact that it hit my awareness to tell her.
Komen has a helpline.
Yeah.
That, you can pick up the phone and be, okay, I've just been diagnosed. What resources are there in my community? What can Komen do? And connect you, which I think is always the goal of Circle of Promise, is connecting people with the resources that are there. You know, again, as you were talking about, nobody walks this journey alone. We need to make sure that people know what's out there in our community.
Yeah, of
where
course.
they go, how they, get the support that they need as they're going through. So that's part of the whole process.
So 2 questions before we end the podcast. This podcast episode will be coming out on March 20th. That'll be next Wednesday from our recording. What events, sponsorship opportunities do we have coming up for both Circle of Promise and Susie G. Komen?
Well, event-wise, our next big event is April 6th. That is the Circle of Promise Education Breakfast. And we do still have a few seats available. If there are people that are interested after they hear this, we would love to have them. Tickets are only $15, and breast cancer survivors are free. So it's just an opportunity to come together, gather some information, a morning of education, inspiration, and celebration is how we refer to it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's nice.
And then in May is the Peoria Walk, Mother's Day weekend. It has been that same weekend for 39 years. So this is the 39th year. And if anyone is interested, they can register at Komen.org/Peoria Walk. They can also reach us at the Komen office and we can help get them registered. And actually the week before that, we have an event called Brats for the Cure. Johnsonville donates about 3,000 brats for us.
Nice.
And we do a lot of...
Can we do a hot dog eating contest? Brat contest.
brat eating contest.
Brat-
That's right. That's right. And
I'll eat brats for the cause.
Peoria firemen come and grill, and
Nice.
companies order and we deliver, or we're set up at Schnucks Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So those are kind of the things that are happening. It's coming up soon.
It's got to warm both your hearts to see the growth of not only the organizations but the community itself through these organizations, and how there are people who come to you lost, and when they get through it, they're like, "Oh my God, thank you!" And now they're just part of the organization, and it gives back. All of that to set up each of these episodes. They're collections of stories. People in our community that give back in positive ways, that leave an imprint in our community. So for yourselves individually, when your story is done and the book is closed, what's that gold nugget you want somebody that's reading your chapter, hearing your message? What do you want them to get from your trials and tribulations and successes in your life? It's a deep question.
It is a deep question. I would say that for me and for what I have done, that everybody matters. That whatever we have to do to reach people wherever they are, everybody matters. And everybody is entitled to, whether it's good health care or whether it is fresh food or any of the things that a lot of us take for granted. That everyone matters, and just want to be a part of making sure that I help move that forward.
I love that.
I think that when they close the book on my life, I would like for someone to be able to say, she loved her Savior, she loved people, and she wanted to make a difference in individuals' lives.
I love that, ladies. One last time, let's give them the website where they can get all the information.
Komen, Komen.org/Peoria Walk. We'll take them to that, and then it'll take them to our webpage.
Love it.
Yep.
Ladies, thank you so much. Well, that's been episode 54 of the KZ Community Beat. I'm your host, Ross Martinez. Sitting down with me this week, Gayle Young, Executive Director of Susan G. Komen Central Illinois Memorial, and Dr. Fran Armmer from Circle of Promise, a retired chairperson of the Department of Nursing at Bradley University and survivor of breast cancer. Ladies, thank you so much. Go back, check out all the other episodes. Check out Komen.org. If not, we'll come throw bratwurst at you. You could grill them afterwards.
That's
Recycle.
Yeah. Oh, boy.